Hey guys, welcome to our first video. This video is for to kind of help you set up and get ready for your game and maybe start creating some scenes and showing you some quick tips that I find really helpful when I'm planning and creating my game. So the first thing, in the previous video, of course, the other video I gave you, I kind of went through how to import assets from the website to the package manager into the game. So once you've done that, you might have something that's like this. The first thing I would say is I'd create a folder and call it asset packs or something like that. And then I would make another folder inside that folder, and I'd call it original online assets. And then I'd create another folder that might be called edited online assets. And then I'd create a third folder that's called personal assets of some form. That might seem really overzealous, but trust me, it'll help. If you've got it set up like this, where you've got the list on the side, what you can actually kind of do is see where it click on the assets pack here, and then you can kind of highlight, as long as you don't highlight it, you can actually just do that, and then that. And now within original assets, all those assets are just there. Really helps her. You might want to like split your screens. So take this off and then pin it to, what have I done there? No, I want side view, thank you. Like that, thank you. And pin it like that so you can have game end scene view, might be helpful for you. I've also installed Cinema Machine so we can create a 2D camera straight away. And then you might want to create an empty object. I like doing this and calling it cameras. And then dragging both of them into it, and then you can just hide it just to help you. I'm gonna press save project. I just like keeping it organized like that. So the first step is now to create some form of scene. You can see we've got our camera box here, and it sees nothing obviously because I haven't clicked the scene yet. So if we go into our assets pack, into our original online assets, and if we just go into, I think we're gonna go with, what do we want? Okay, we'll go with this one here that I like here. This so it's got tile palette sets. It's got them like this, and it's got this one here, a non-dark one. It's actually got them in two. This one's got them a bit weird. It's got them like this, and it's also got them unspliced. So we're going to use these to make our scene. So first thing we're going to do is going to click over here, and you're going to go create 2D tile map, and just your normal rectangular tile map, right? Now, what I also recommend doing is just to be uber helpful for yourself. I'm going to go tile maps. Tile maps. And then drag the grid into there. And then you've got tile map 1. Now, you might want to rename this as well if you want. And maybe call it, I don't know, ground tile map 1 or something like that. Could be helpful. Whatever really takes your fancy. If you go into here, 2D tile palette, and it'll create this little baby here, and you can drag it over here. You can go that. You can zoom out by scrolling, whatever you want. Yeah, and you can drag. I really do recommend that you, when it tells you to save it, you come into assets and you create a new folder and you call it tile palettes. and you select there to save. And that'll create your tile maps. So that's that one. Okay, so we have a tile map. It looks something like this, okay? So you can see we kind of drag them in. They can, and you can kind of place them. Sometimes you might have to adjust the pixel size and stuff like that, but most of the time they'll just kind of be set up pre-built for Unity, so they kind of work. You can select multiple lines and then paint. You can select a single line and then paint, okay? It's pretty simple, and you can zoom out a little bit if you like, make your screen bigger. You know, you can literally select the whole thing and kind of paint with that. You can kind of keep this so you can see how big your camera is and paint kind of that way if you'd like. However you would like to do it, right? Maybe you prefer the darker kind of scale, and you can paint this way. Maybe you want it to be like that. You can play around with it. It's kind of your domain. So you might start creating your scene of some form. So let's just go really basic. Creating some dark, like that, and you can hold it and drag, or you can just keep on clicking, however you like. We're going to drag it a bit that way. Then we're going to kind of select this. Oh no, we don't want that bottom one. Like this. Making like a wall. I mean, we do want that. No. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm doing. That looks horrendous. You know, maybe you want to paint off a part that they can't go anymore of some form. Anyway, it doesn't uber matter. You know, you can create ledges. You know, it's going up. If you want to drag, you can drag yourself that way. It's gone up, and now that's all dark below. You know, you can hold this so they can keep on going up the hill. It's a hill of some form, which then levels off. Anyway, that's not the point. We've created some form of map. Now with tile maps, they have a particularly unique way that you want to create their physics. And the way that you create their physics, I want to stop selecting. Thank you very much. There we go. Is by selecting the tile map over here in physics, adding a component. We don't want them. And going physics 2D, coming down here and adding this composite collider. Then adding another thing, and that's not under physics 2D, it's actually under tile maps. And this tile map collider, and then selecting this used by composite. And you can see it creates an outline of the whole tile map that you've drawn as its body collider. And you also might want to come down here into constraints and freeze it on its rigid body. And I like turning that into collision. Okay? Into continuous, sorry. That way it doesn't fall. See if I click play in our game scene, here it's not falling. Whereas if I didn't click freeze and press play, no. Yeah, so obviously it falls. Okay, cool. Saving project. Now, you can see we've got our ground plane. Now the next thing is we might want to draw in a background of some form. So if we come into here, into our, so we've got our assets, we've got asset packs, original assets. We've got, warped cave. Oh, here we go. So you got this background image here, right? So we have a couple of different ones here that we can kind of just drag these in, and you see they kind of appear. Now you might want to shape them, so you can shape them just by dragging them, like so and so. You know, try not to stretch them too much, they look weird. Like that. You know, you might want, I don't know, I'm kind of just, as you can tell, this isn't pre-planned, but maybe, you know, you might want like just a city skyline background, maybe you can even put them behind each other, like, you know, maybe that looks back into the city skyline, or maybe, you know, something like that. You got far buildings. You can see that looks like that. So, you know, if you want to be really boring, you can also just, you can see these are, named, and I think that, yeah. So you can kind of just like, you know, Control-C, Control-V it as well if you wanted to, and just drag them back to back if you really wanted to. You know, obviously if you're making this yourself, you might be a little bit more creative, but for yourself, you might be a bit more creative, but, you know, just this sense, you can see that it's like back to back. You can see that we've got this blue background still though, like, and then, so we might want to create an empty, obviously, and we're going to call this maybe backgrounds. Right? And you're going to drag these into it. But you might want to create, I don't know all the art terms, but maybe we're going to call it foreground. And drag that under. And then these foregrounds, you drag them under that. And then you might want to rename them, I don't know, City 1. Rename City 2. Something like that. You can kind of hide them as well and hide all that. Just so it looks neater. And you can see we've got a kind of city here. And you might want, okay, that's good and all, but we kind of want it to not be blue in the background, right? I mean, maybe you do want it to be blue. It's up to you. So I don't want it to be that though. So I'm going to go in here into my some of my other backgrounds that I've drawn. And I'm going to drag this in. Okay, so this is night. I'm going to select the movement on night. And I'm going to drag it. The night's quite big, as you can see. It kind of works quite well. And I'm just going to drag it like that. Okay. Now, you kind of see we've got this like night background. Maybe it's too big and you want it to be a bit more sort of weird boxing, doesn't it? A bit more like that, maybe. I don't mind it like that. Yeah, quite happy with it like that. Maybe shifting it across so it lines up just a little bit more. There we go. Okay, we've got our night, okay? Now, what you can do is, if this for some reason, and we're renaming this City Night. And maybe you want to create an empty and you call those background. Obviously, like if you're more into art, you can really name them whatever you want, but it's just like an organizational tool, right? Just so that you kind of, yeah, you can also, now, if for some reason you might have dragged these and mine just worked perfectly for me. It's just what happened, right? But they won't always work perfectly for you. Now, the way you change things layers is as such. So, and this is probably a good thing to do anyway, even if it did work perfectly for you. So we're going to come to this ground tile map here. And you can see here how it has a layer. And we're going to add a layer, and we're going to call this ground 1. Okay? And so then we're going to come back to and click this, and we're going to set it to ground 1. Now it's set to ground 1. Now in sorting layers, which is down here, we're going to add a sorting layer, and we're going to call that ground 1. Like so. Okay? So, and then we're going to come over here to our tile map. And in our sorting layers, we're going to select ground 1. Okay? Now, we're going to come here and we're going to select this parent foreground. And we're going to go add layer. And, you might want to call it foreground or something like that. I don't think foreground's the right term. I think foreground's the things that are in front of where you're walking. But anyway. And you can just keep on naming layers in the one go if you want to. Background 1, foreground 1, so and so, right? And we're going to call it select foreground 1. And you can see this here. We'd like to set all of the children. Yes. And if you come here, you can see that all of the children are now set to foreground, which is quite helpful. And backgrounds here. Background 1, set children. Yep. Okay, and now over here to sorting layers. We're going to add a sorting layer. And we're going to call that background. And you're going to notice something's going to happen in a second. Okay, and then we're going to make both of these background 1. You might have already noticed what's happening. Suddenly, they appear in front. They're in front of our land. If we come back here into sorting layers, and instead of adding one, you click the add button, and I drag it, boom, it's behind. Okay? And then we come over here to background. Obviously, we're going to add a sorting layer, and we call this, I know, deep. I'm just ground. I know I should have called 1. Okay? And then we select the city, and we set it to the sorting deep background. You know, it's just going to appear in front of everything. And we add sorting layer, and we're just going to drag that right to the back. Okay? So now this will appear first, then on top of that ground 1, then on top of that layer 1. Now, why you might want to do something like that is, for example, let's drag our character in, okay? So, online assets, 2D character, sprites. We're going to go with Timmy here, okay? We're going to select Timmy. And we're going to drag him into our scene. Timmy! And we're going to rename him. Actually, first we're going to create an empty, and we're going to name that main character. You could even actually just rename that characters if you wanted. I made that a parent for some reason, and then we're gonna make hero the thing, and we're gonna rename him main. You might okay. Then we're gonna hide these backgrounds from this tiles map. Now we've got little Timmy here. Okay, is Timmy super small? The answer is no. So he's on this default very far back sorting layer. We're actually going to add a sorting layer, and we're going to call it player. Okay. And we're going to select our main character. And we're going to put him on the player storyline. He's going to come right to the front. Okay, so there's also this order in the sorting layer, so which can help you as well, but we won't really get into that. The greater the number. So if I put him on the background, he'll appear behind it, but if I make him a 1, he'll appear in front. So if you had like more complex designs potentially. Anyway, put him on player. We're also going to add a player user layer here. You can just there. And we're going to go here, back to him, and we're going to make him player. Cool. And you can see one of the reasons you might want to do it is if he's walking on the ground, some games you'll want his feet to be visible on top of the grass, and maybe other games you want it behind. So if he was on the same layer as the ground, that could be efficient. Obviously, you want this in the background as well. Okay? Obviously, our ground doesn't really match our scene here. Okay, cool. We've got our main character. And then within him, we want to create an empty, which is ceiling check. And we want to create an empty on him, which is ground check. You always want to do this. Anyway, we're going to zoom in on him. You want to see these empties, and you drag the ceiling check to his roof, to his head, and the ground check to his feet. Okay, we're going to press Save Project. And then we have our main character, and we want to add our physics to him. So we're going to add a physics 2D box collider to him. And remember from the previous video, we want to drag this into shape. Around him, and then we're going to add physics 2D circular collider. We want to drag this into shape around his feet. Quite happy with that. And then we're going to add physics 2D rigid body, and we're going to freeze them in the Y and make it continuous. Okay, cool. So we have our main character. Now what I want to say is I'm going to zoom out for a second. If I lift him up click on our main character and we move him up there and I press play, he falls to the ground. Mind the lag, it's just like the jut of the start of it. If you hold it up, it'll say it's smooth. It's just the starting of the game. Okay. Now, what you can do if you've got something like this, if I press play and I copy his position and then press unplay, and then I can paste his position and he's on the ground, which is quite a quick, clever way of doing it. So we have our character, we have our scene, okay, which is all pretty awesome. Now, I'll quickly show you the cinema machine thing. So on cinema machine here, you can see it has this follow and look at. If you clicked on the cinema machine, follow and look at, and what you wanted to do is just drag your main character into it. And so it looks at your main character and it follows your main character. If you click off it, it's always centered on your main character, and that's kind of cool. Obviously you can kind of see at the moment, we can see past this blue, because it always encompasses him before it was kind of offset. So it's something to think about. We might want to drag, kind of block this up somehow. So maybe, I don't know, come into our tile map and zoom out a little bit. And I actually really don't like how that looks. That's far better. We might want to, you know, just... You could even just use a picture of some form, so cyberpunk stuff. No, cyberpunk. Some weird materials. I need to click off this paint and I don't know. Have some. The Cyberpunk ones are weirdly small. It's not a great asset pack, is it? Have some city off into the background. That looks so bad. So bad. What does it look like if I drag this one in? I mean, we're not trying to be good. I'm not an artist. But yeah, you could do something like that. I mean, or you could just... No. Oh, actually, I'll show you the other thing that I do. What I sometimes do, it's really lazy, but let's say we go back into here and we grab our night. So it's night, obviously. I know I'm just being weirdly pedantic about this, but yeah, anyway, it's night. I drive that back into place. I want to go back into my backgrounds. Oh, what I could have done actually, I'm just going to do, I don't know why I didn't do it this way. I'm going to go city night. I'm going to copy and I'm going to paste. And then I just go select and drag across like that. Now coming back into my tile. Because then by doing it that way, it keeps its property. So if you go into Inspector, it's still a background and still on the deep background sorting layer. If I come into tile maps, and I go back into my tile map 1, come to my tile map palette, obviously zooming in a bit more. Deleting these blocks here. These blocks here. We're going to keep on laying down our path for a while. Right, like this, yeah? So the view, we know the view is 2 blocks, right? So at the moment it has this overlap like this. This is a really lazy way of doing it. And now we're going to... We've built our tile map. We've clicked off on select. We come into our foregrounds and we've got the city 1, city 2. We duplicate it one more time. We select this part and we just drag it across. We've got our ever building city, right? Now, what we can create is we close backgrounds, close tile maps. I'm going to create a new empty and I'm going to call it, I don't know what I'm going to call it. I'm going to call it stops. And in that I'm going to create a 2D object, a square. We've got block 1. Now we're going to select that. And in the inspector, we're going to, it doesn't matter what layer it's on, but its color, its sprite render is going to be none, okay? But it doesn't matter that it's none. We're going to add physics box collider to it. Sure. We could actually just even leave it as a... For now, I want it to see it, so I'm going to bring it right forward. Why is it so small? I need to bring it on sorting layer player, sorry. Yeah. I mean, you can even do it more subtly than that. I might do it slightly more subtly. I mean, you could easily do it more subtly. I could make it like a... I don't know. I'm overthinking this now, but instead of using... I'm going to... I've got so many... It's a tree! Okay, so we got a tree of some form, right? Now I'm putting it on the sorting layer of ground, but I'm gonna make ground have a 1. We have a tree, right? Add component, physics 2D. We have a capsule collider on it, okay? This seems really weird, but basically, you're blocking the player. He can't move past this tree. It collides with it, it's blocking him. Maybe it looks really... You could make it a lamppost. Maybe a tree's not a great call for its particular location, I don't know. But, like, you know, whatever. Anyway, you understand what I'm trying to do. Like, well, you can play around all you'd like with what it actually is. Like, it doesn't have to be a tree. Could be another player. Could be a mountain. I mean, if I go into... and then I go into Inspector and I select the block. I'm pretty sure if I drag this in there, that'll become what it is. Whoa, we got a lamppost. Okay, maybe a lamppost makes a bit more sense, but a lamppost just here. Yeah. Okay, so we have a lamppost. It makes more sense. What does its collider look like? God, that's a bad collider. And that acts as a stop. Okay, so that's kind of... You can craft your scene and get it from there kind of thing. So obviously you start crafting your scene, making all your light labels. I mean, I don't know why I even introduced a block before we're talking about movement. But yeah, you can slowly craft your scene out this way, creating backgrounds, putting props. You know, for example, if you want to actually make this proper light post, I could create another 2D empty anything, right? Underneath it is a parent object. Let's just if I double click on something, it'll zoom in on it, right? So we've got this square now. We're gonna bring it forward. You can see it's a white square right now. If I drag it and move it, then if I come into these textures in here, and I select back on this square, I drag in the lantern. It's a lantern. Yeah. I can kind of this is the most out of place town. But now you have the lantern of it. And you can kind of create objects that way. You can kind of see now in the game scene we actually have a proper light lantern in the thing, which looks really out of place in our cyberpunk backgrounded city. But I mean, yeah, you can kind of start building a city that way if you'd like. I can create another empty, just keep on creating empty sprites, bringing them forward to my ground. There's going to be on the ground here, there is a pumpkin. I just drag it into its shape. Suddenly we have a pumpkin, and we can drag it and place it on the ground. And you can build your props in your scene that way. And obviously, if you want props to be on top of props, you can play around with their sorting layers and stuff like that. So hopefully that kind of gives you time and some the skills you need to kind of start creating and building your scene, your very first scene. And then for the next video, we'll look at some awesome coding.